Following that at 2 o'clock is episode number 6 of 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin. Stay with us for these readings and more.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, June 5th. Your reader for this hour is Chet Walczyk. Glad you were able to join us. We'll kick it off with the weekend edition. And their cover story features pets. We still love animals, but owners are forced to make tough choices. Surging costs bite into pet adoptions. Olivia Sablan would do anything for her 3-year-old golden retriever, Lemon, including cutting other parts of her budget. She is my whole world, said Sablan, 27, a postdoctoral student in Seattle studying atmospheric science. Sablan rescued and adopted Lemon when the pup was 10 months old. But pets are not cheap. Pet ownership is increasingly becoming more expensive, a new Bank of America Institute analysis finds. As costs, including veterinary care, go up, there has been a pullback on pet adoption rates and pet ownership, which may signal that affordability is playing a larger role among animal lovers, the Bank of America Institute said. The U.S. pet market is still steadily growing, though at a slower pace, with 95 million households, or about 71% of Americans owning a pet. Spending for pets hit $158 billion in 2025, according to the National Pet Owners Survey, cited in the Bank of America analysis. Dog ownership is ahead of other pets at 68%. Cats were the second most popular pet at 46%, while ownership of fish, birds, and small mammals was less common. Pet ownership is strong, but as is the case for many other facets of people's budgets, the cost of caring for pets is rising. Taylor Bowley, a Bank of America Institute economist, told USA Today. Affordability constraints are increasingly shaping whether consumers are adding a pet to their household or how they shop for that pet. Bank of America Global Research found that pet adoptions slowed in the first half of 2025, with dog adoptions declining modestly year over year and cat adoptions staying stable. Bank of America data also shows that the share of households with pets has declined over the past 2 years, with the sharpest drop of nearly 0.7% from last year to this year among lower-income households. Spending on pet goods and services is increasing. Spending at pet stores was up 1% year over year in April. The biggest increase for pet owners came in veterinary care. Consumer spending at veterinary services rose nearly 6% year over year, according to the data. Some of that increase is consolidation of veterinary services to private equity firms, which it said can erode competition and increase prices. But spending on pets differed among income groups. Spending in pet stores in April for lower-income millennials dropped a little more than 2%, compared with 1% increase for higher-income millennials. For Gen X, shoppers saw about a 0.6% drop, compared with a 1.8% increase for higher-income Gen Xers. The variation reflects selective spending, with households adjusting their outlays on discretionary categories like toys, accessories, and supplies, depending on the differences in their budgets, the report said. Bali said millennials and Gen Xers may be in the crosswinds of caring for children, aging parents, and pets, which can all put a strain on an already tight budget. Where you live also affects pet care cost. The Bank of America Institute, using card data on pet store, pet insurance, and veterinary spending across 20 large core-based statistical areas relative to the national average, puts Seattle on the top of the list. The average monthly spending in Seattle in the first 4 months of 2026 was nearly 23% above the monthly national average. Portland, Oregon, and Portland, Maine landed in second and third. On the other end of the spectrum for pet owners, Atlanta, Dallas, and Orlando were below national average for pet spending, hovering around 10% less. Differences in pet spending likely reflect regional differences in cost of living, Bowley said. Sablan, who chronicles her life with Lemon on social media, recently outlined her monthly cost for pet ownership. She acknowledges that her costs for Lemon are pretty low compared with others she has seen, coming in at $119 a month. Costs include food, flea and heartworm medication, and pet insurance. She grooms Lemon herself, which helps her save money. Sablan mostly works from home, but says that if she needed to send Lemon to doggy daycare, that would add significant to her bills. Still, Sablan says, she believes she and other pet owners would cut other parts of their budgets to care for their furry companions. People are going to continue to pay it because we love our dogs. And you're not going to just cut out those costs because they start costing more. And here's a somber story as we come across a very, very significant day in our history. How crucial was weather to success of D-Day? Fate of war and the world hinged on one forecast. To go or not to go? June 2026 marks 82 years since General Dwight Eisenhower's chief meteorologist, Group Captain James Martin Stagg, made one of the most important weather forecasts of all time, defying his colleagues. He advised Ike to postpone the invasion of Normandy by one day from June 5, 1944 to June 6th because of uncertain weather conditions. This important decision is the subject of the new movie Pressure, starring Brendan Fraser as Ike, now out in theaters. The real-life D-Day was a Herculean effort to reclaim a critical part of Europe from the Nazis and turn the tide of World War II. Stagg, who was actually a geophysicist by training, and his fellow British and American meteorologists were operating without any of the technology and equipment that today's forecasters take for granted, such as satellites, weather radar, computer modeling, and instant communications. Relying mainly on surface observations from military and civilian weather observers in the British Isles and in Western Europe, and a few military observers at sea, predicting the weather more than a day or two in advance in that era was unrealistic. Additionally, weather prediction in England and Europe, especially before the advent of satellites, was much trickier than forecasting in the United States. In America, even in that era, weather systems could be tracked for days after hitting the West Coast and moving east, while European forecasters were often operating blind with the empty ocean to the west. Predicting the exact timing, track, and strength of these storms put Group Captain Stagg and his colleagues under almost unimaginable pressure and conflict, according to the book The Forecast for D-Day, with the fate of the war and perhaps the world hanging in the balance. What troubled the meteorologist in the days leading up to D-Day was a parade of storms that barreled across the Atlantic and into the British Isles, any of which would have stirred up the dangerous waters of the English Channel where the fleet was gathering and provided unwelcome cloud cover for the aerial assault on Normandy. The invasion was originally scheduled for the morning of June 5th, but the weather forecast was bad enough for Stagg to advise Ike to postpone it by one day, despite protests from his fellow meteorologists who felt the weather would be good enough for the mission to take place. According to meteorologist and weather historian Sean Potter, like many military operations, the success of the Normandy landings on D-Day hinged heavily upon the weather. D-Day, however, was no ordinary military operation. Each component of the invasion, naval, air, and land forces, had its own weather requirements. A forecast that might mean ideal conditions for the bombers, for example, might not take into account the needs of the seaborne invasion, Potter said. The invasion also depended on a narrow combination of tides, moonlight, cloud cover, wind, and sea conditions that occurred only during a limited window of opportunity. While weather forecasting had seen vast improvements in the 2 decades before D-Day, most notably with the development of the polar front theory of how storms develop, there were still limitations that made forecasting for D-Day a real challenge. Forecasters today have advantages of radar, satellites, and other advanced technologies, including numerical weather prediction, to help them make accurate predictions. None of these were available to the D-Day forecasters, Potter explained. Another challenge was that one of the 3 Allied forecasting teams that contributed to the D-Day forecast, led by American Irving Crick, relied primarily on a technique known as analog forecasting, where they compared the weather situation at hand with similar scenarios in the past to determine what might happen. By 1944, analog forecasting was viewed with skepticism by many meteorologists and was largely being replaced by other, more modern methods, Potter said. In the end, the forecasters did identify a crucial break in the weather that allowed the invasion to take place, though conditions remained rough and far from ideal and not entirely as predicted. Potter explains, a 2020 paper published in the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society suggests the forecast for D-Day was essentially right for the wrong reason. The author of the paper, Swedish meteorologist Anders Persson, reviewed transcripts of telephone discussions between the Allied forecasting teams and concluded that, while forecasters accurately predicted a break in the weather on June 6th, they misunderstood why it would occur. They believed the storm system that had delayed the invasion would move away and be replaced by higher pressure and improving conditions. Instead, the storm lingered over the invasion area but weakened slightly, producing weather that remained marginal yet still acceptable for Eisenhower's decision to proceed. Overall, the movie is very accurate in its portrayal of the role weather played in planning for D-Day and the challenges forecasters faced in predicting it, Potter said. It did take some liberties, such as suggesting that James Stagg, Eisenhower's chief meteorological advisor, didn't get involved in the forecasting for D-Day until several days prior to the invasion. In fact, he had been involved for months. It also likely over-dramatizes the tension and conflict between Stagg and his American counterpart, Irving Crick. There were disagreements, but they were kept mainly professional. One thing the film does a very good job of is conveying the sense of uncertainty that Stagg had in the forecasters he presented to Eisenhower. Understanding forecast uncertainty is still an important part of making decisions when the weather is a factor. So what if they had delayed D-Day? As noted, while far from perfect, the weather on the morning of June 6th was good enough for the invasion to proceed successfully. Had the mission not gone on June 6th, the next window would have been a full 2 weeks later, when tides and moonlight were right. On that day, 2 weeks later, a completely unforeseen gale would have caused the invasion to fail. In the book, The Forecast for D-Day, author John Ross said that had the invasion failed, the secrecy about when and where the Allies would land would be lost. Victory in Europe would have been delayed for a year, and the Soviet Union might have taken control of the continent. Years later, during the ride to the Capitol for his inauguration, President John F. Kennedy asked Eisenhower why the Normandy invasion had been so successful. Ike's answer? Because we had better meteorologists then the Germans. What a time that must have been. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 15 minutes after the hour. Order makes firing federal workers easier. Dateline, Washington. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order converting nearly 8,000 federal workers who are in senior policy influencing positions into at-will employees, making it easier for the administration to fire them. About 97% of the reclassified positions are among the highest-ranking career positions, such as directors, chiefs of staff, senior advisors, and policy analysts who are involved in drafting regulations and guidance and determining who gets federal grants. At an Oval Office event June 3rd to sign the executive order, Trump invited James Shirk of the Domestic Policy Council, the mastermind behind the change, to share his thoughts. Shirk said federal employee removal procedures are often lengthy. If you have employees who are trying to undermine the wishes of American people by pushing of their own agenda or just incompetent in what they're doing, agencies have a long-standing typical time getting rid of them. And that is a particular problem, Shirk said. What this does is basically treats those employees like private sector workers. They can be hired on the basis of merit, but if they are messing up, then they can be removed real quickly rather than taking a year longer. A fact sheet issued by the White House put the idea behind the change in starker terms. It said that because firing employees is burdensome, agencies seldom remove career employees for subversion of presidential priorities. The number of employees affected by the conversion is smaller than what the Office of Personnel Management had estimated. In February, the office had estimated that about 2% of the federal workforce, or about 50,000 employees, would be reclassified to scheduled policy/career. Since the start of the second Trump administration, the federal government has reduced the workforce by more than 300,000 civil service jobs. The cuts were driven by layoffs, buyouts, and deferred resignation offers in concert with the Department of Government Efficiency. Mullen, Democrats trade barbs in an intense DHS funding hearing. This wasn't Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen's first congressional rodeo. During a June 3rd House Homeland Security Committee hearing to discuss the Department of Homeland Security's budget, lawmakers grilled Mullen over court orders restricting immigration enforcement, private jets, and allegations of racism among agencies. Mullen took over from former Secretary Kristi Noem in March after she was fired not long after lawmakers pressed her about the department's massive spending. And Mullen, a 48-year-old former Republican senator from Oklahoma and former mixed martial arts fighter, is also known for fiery exchanges with congressional committees, once challenging a Teamsters leader during a 2023 hearing. The June 3rd gathering, lasting over 3 hours, was no less heated. Secretaries of Homeland Security under President Trump have set a very low bar. Some might even say so low, it was set in hell. Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, the top Democrat on the committee, told Mullen in opening remarks, "I wish I was more encouraged by your early actions as Secretary that you will clear that low bar." Mullen used his opening remarks to respond to Thompson. He accused the lawmaker of being reckless by raising the racism allegations and allowing a record shutdown of DHS, which ended in late April after about 75 days. "I won't have time to go through all the ridiculous accusations you made toward the Trump administration," Mullen said, "but I do feel a privilege sitting here in front of you." At several points, Representative Andrew Garbarino, Republican of New York, the committee chairman, stopped the hearing over personal attacks between Democrats and Mullen. The hearing came a day after Mullen appeared before a Senate committee for a congressional funding request for his agencies. Here are 3 tense moments from Mullen's hearing. Mullen and Democrats spar over contentious court rulings. Mullen said his department, which includes U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, always follows the law. Democrats asked whether that includes federal court orders, and Mullen responded that depends on whether a higher court overturns a ruling. We see lower benches and even upper benches that make decisions based on political reasons, Mullen told Representative Dan Goldman, Democrat of New York. So, you will follow court orders? Goldman responded. I said we will enforce the nation's laws, Mullen said. Goldman later cited a Manhattan federal district judge's late May ruling preventing ICE from arresting people attending immigration court during routine, mandatory check-ins. He asked whether Mullen would stop courthouse arrests in all parts of the country, given the ruling by U.S. Judge Kevin Castile, who was appointed by President George W. Bush, a Republican. Goldman's time expired. Mullen did not respond. Noam's private jets are back in the spotlight, and Mullen is keeping them. Noam had a host of controversies before her ouster. DHS bought 2 new private Gulfstream jets, reportedly valued up to $200 million, through the Coast Guard that Noam then used for travel. Mullen acknowledged he continued to use the Gulfstreams, saying he's statutorily required to fly on government airplanes. Representative James Walkinshaw, Democrat of Virginia, asked whether Mullen would commit to selling the new Gulfstreams and opt for cheaper planes. Why do I need to sell them, sir? Mullen said. Later, Mullen said he cannot fly commercial because he's required as part of a presidential continuity to be in communication at all times like other cabinet-level officials. Allegations of white supremacy in the DHS. Trump's DHS has faced scrutiny over its messaging, which Democrats said had overtures of white supremacy. A March bulletin by the Colorado Information Analysis Center, an anti-terrorism unit in the State Department's Department of Public Safety, alleged that violent extremists may perceive white supremacy ideology in ICE recruitment materials, though the efforts cited by the organization were distributed before Mullen's tenure. In February, the New York Times reported DHS hired a social media manager accused of white nationalist messaging. Mullen denied the accusations, saying his agency was not racist. The incident boiled over when Representative Al Green, Democrat of Texas, said he would share some of the characteristics of a racist and started criticizing comments from Trump administration officials. Green, 78, is black. Mullen, a registered Cherokee Nation member, asked if Green was calling him a racist. Green asked to shut Mullen up. No one will call me a racist, Mullen said. I'm Cherokee too. Garbarino, the chairman, who was white, said House rules do not allow disparaging members of Congress, witnesses like Mulligan, or the president or vice president. Some GOP states declared June Nuclear Family Month. Several Republican states have moved to designate June Nuclear Family Month or similar observances, creating an overlapping contrast with Pride Month. Tennessee was the first to adopt the label this year, followed by proclamations in Indiana and Alabama emphasizing households with a mother, father, and children. Supporters framed the observance as recognition of traditional family structures, while opponents say the timing and language amount to political counter-programming that excludes LGBTQ+ families. Homes led by stable parents, a father and a mother, provide children with the structure and discipline necessary to succeed, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, a Republican, said in a statement. In Alabama, we celebrate these hardworking parents that strive for an even better future for the children. But Chris Sanders of the Tennessee Equality Project told Newsweek, when the government comes in and says June is Nuclear Family Month, yes, there is a bit of petty insulting going on there. In Arkansas, Republican Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders took a related but distinct approach, declaring June Fidelity Month. In a proclamation May 27th, the state describes the United States as a nation founded on the values of faith, liberty, and patriotism, and emphasizes the role of spiritual institutions in society. Cultivating fidelity to God, family, community, and country contributes to human flourishing and supports a healthy, stable, well-ordered society, the proclamation says. Priest removed over UFO remarks. Washington Archdiocese cuts ties with exorcist. The Catholic Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. has removed a priest as an exorcist and cut ties with the priest, a nonprofit organization, over comments the priest made about UFOs and demons. Cardinal Robert McElroy, the Archbishop of Washington, said in a statement that Monsignor Stephen Rossetti of the Diocese of Syracuse, New York, has been removed as an exorcist. McElroy said statements Rossetti made linking UFOs to demonic presence and the center's recent use of social media gravely undermine the Church's very precise teaching on the devil, demons, and exorcism. Rossetti, president and founder of the St. Michael Center for Spiritual Renewal in the District of Columbia, has been an exorcist in Washington for 19 years, according to his website. He wrote the book, Diary of an American Exorcist. He also is a psychologist and worked in the psychological treatment of priests. He has led hundreds of exorcism and deliverance sessions, his website says. Rossetti commented about UFOs recently in video posted to social media. The Church has said there's nothing incompatible with the faith about believing that there's life on other planets, he said. I personally don't think there is. But there's a danger here, and I want to raise that as an exorcist, he said. Demons like to hide. They don't want us to know they're around. It's my personal belief that probably many, if not most, of these UFO sightings are, in fact, demons. Vice President J.D. Vance, a converted Catholic, has made similar comments on UFOs. He told The Benny Show in March, I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway. But that's a longer discussion. In a statement posted to the St. Michael Center website, Rossetti said that he was saddened by the decision and that the center plans to continue its ministry elsewhere. I ask forgiveness for any ways that I have not been faithful to the teaching of the Church's magisterium, particularly in the cited video on aliens and the demonic, Rossetti said. I believe it is of the utmost importance to be obedient to the Church, and I will continue to endeavor to subject all that I do and the center to be thus obedient. Exorcisms are official practices of the Catholic Church. They are a specific form of prayer that the Church uses against the power of the devil, according to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. They come in two forms: a simple exorcism that may be used for those preparing to be baptized, and major exorcisms that can be performed only by a bishop or priest, must receive approval, and is aimed at the expulsion of demons or to the liberation of a person from demonic possession, according to the conference. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and the time is 30 minutes after the hour. And we turn to the USA Today opinion section for Friday, June 5th. We have a piece written by Sarah Pequeño. Miss Pequeño is a columnist for USA Today, and she writes on the Blue Sky platform. Her piece, "Liberals are not anti-marriage. We are just doing it our own way." Sometimes it feels like everyone on my Instagram feed is getting engaged, getting married, or celebrating a wedding anniversary. Personally, I feel indifferent toward the idea of getting married myself. I find the thought of a life partner compelling, but not necessary. I'm not firmly against it. I can see myself getting married at a courthouse or a Las Vegas chapel. But if it doesn't happen, well, that's okay. This nonchalance is infuriating to conservatives. Institute for Family Studies fellows Brad Wilcox and Grant Bailey wrote that over the past 50 years, liberals have led the cultural charge to devalue, deny, and discount the institution of marriage. But if liberals really detest marriage the way we are said to, why do I know so many people getting married? I was curious about this discrepancy, so I put a call out on my Instagram story asking people to share their opinions on marriage and weddings. It turns out people have very strong opinions on tying the knot, even if I do not. At 28, I am at the age where, on average, women in the United States are entering their first marriages. I live in the South for most of my life, a place where traditional views of partnership prevail. It makes sense that my social media feeds are consumed by smiling couples, diamond rings, and white dresses. Still, there's been a 54% decrease in women's marriage rates since 1900, according to a 2022 study from Bowling Green University. Kat Tenbarge, a 28-year-old journalist living in New Jersey, attributed this decline to the rights women have won over the years. After all, women only earned financial independence en masse when the Equal Credit Opportunity Act became law in 1974, when they no longer needed to have a man co-sign their loans. The right to have your own bank account, the right to open your own line of credit, the right to own your own home. All of these relatively recent rights that women have gained have changed the landscape of marriage so much, Tenbarge told me. She has known since childhood that she wanted a wedding and got engaged to her partner, Anna, in 2025. She attributes this fascination to the prevalence of weddings in pop culture, from TLC's Say Yes to the Dress to YouTubers vlogging about their wedding days. As much as I wanted to get married, Tenbarge said, I think that it's such a phenomenal advancement that young women in particular could decenter marriage from their lives. This is a big factor in my own indifference toward marriage. I no longer have to get married to attain the financial goals that I have, nor do I have to be reliant on a partner for financial stability. Brighton McConnell, a 29-year-old North Carolina journalist, began dating his wife Sarah at the end of their freshman year of college. Despite their decade-long relationship, they did not get married until October 2025. We always approached it as we are in a commitment with each other, and we would prioritize our careers or these other aspects of life before basically nuking 8 months of our life, he told me about planning a wedding. Census data shows that the average age of first marriage has increased by more than 7 years for both men and women since 1975. A big reason is the exorbitant cost of a wedding. I also spoke with Kate Beckman, one of the co-founders of the AI Wedding Planning Group, Told Together, about the high cost. She noted that couples often experience sticker shock when planning their nuptials. According to data from the platform that she provided to me, there was a 10% increase in expected wedding budgets among users between 2025 and this year, from $45,500 to $50,000. In more liberal states, these budgets are even higher because of the high cost of living. The Tool Together data showed that the average venue fee in New York, for example, is $23,600, more than twice the national average. Then there's food, photographers, DJs, and outfits. If you are trying to spend $70,000 on an event, of course, you're going to push your wedding until you're older, more established in your career, Beckman told me. For some couples, it's hard to imagine spending this money on a single event when they could spend it on a nice vacation, student loans, or a down payment on an apartment. Cost is another reason why I see marriage as an option, not a necessity. Why would I spend tens of thousands of dollars on an event that only lasts one day? Would I bite the bullet and get married in New York City with its high costs? Or options, like a courthouse wedding, as more attainable? I have seen two of my closest friends get married in the past 2 years. Both had weddings that suited them. One was a small affair in their Philadelphia apartment where they walked down the metaphorical aisle to Adore You by Harry Styles. The other was a more traditional, complete with a bridal party and a first dance. I came away from both of these weddings with the same warm feeling, in awe of the step my friends were taking. I loved that both couples did their weddings their way, another thing that came up repeatedly in my conversations with my peers. I spoke with other LGBTQ plus people who were excited to get married, as well as several people who had friends, not priests, officiate their weddings. At the root of it, this is another reason conservatives are complaining. It's not that Gen Z liberals aren't getting married, it's that our marriages look different from the ones they expect us to have. The weddings and the marriages and the relationships have just gotten less traditional compared to the hitherto patriarchal version of marriage, Tenbarge told me. I came to understand through my conversations that marriage, like most major decisions, is deeply personal. While my feelings on marriage may still be complicated, there are plenty of liberal people who are ready for their happily ever after, and even then, conservatives are furious about it. So, let's move over to the USA Today Money section for Friday, June 5th, which always graces us as a travel and tourism section. And we have a piece written by Nathan Diller, a USA Today travel editor, entitled Floating Paradise. Cruises get plenty of hate. 6 fans share what haters miss. I spend the majority of every cruise I take in the same place, my balcony. Whether I'm reading a book, sunbathing without the crowds of the pool deck, or watching the sunset, a stateroom with a veranda offers a private space to enjoy ever-changing scenery and the close-up crash of waves. Balconies back on land simply are not the same. Cruises offer a unique way to vacation, offering accommodations, transportation, and activities all in one, with a range of distinct features that keep guests coming back. With some distressing stories around cruise ships lately, USA Today asked 6 frequent cruisers about their favorites. And here is what they said. Number 1, waking up in a new place. Mike Smith and his partner have a morning routine when they sail. We wake up in the morning, and I go, okay, favorite part. And favorite part means getting out of bed. And we always get a balcony room, and we rip the curtains open as fast and hard as we can, and then it lets all the sunshine in, and it usually reveals where the new port is, he said. Smith, who teaches American Sign Language and makes travel content on his Instagram account, cited one particularly memorable morning in Mexico's Cabo San Lucas. And it was like that iconic, almost screensaver background of the Cabo Peninsula just jutting out. It was gorgeous. Number 2, access to hard-to-reach destinations. Cruise ships can help guests get to destinations that may be challenging and cost prohibitive to reach otherwise, said Jordan Taylor, one half of J.J. Cruise. I love the ability to fly to Miami and then head to the Southern Caribbean, or fly to London and go up to the Norwegian fjords, or there are parts of Alaska that are really difficult to get to, he said. I think cruise ships have opened up a world to everyone to make places accessible and easy to get to, whereas it might be more difficult without them. Number 3, making friends across the globe. Taylor's husband and the other half of J.J. Cruise, Jared Daly, said he realized over time that while passengers and crew members hail from all over, it's kind of a small world on every ship. He has found friends at sea. It could be on a Caribbean sailing for 5 nights, or it could be around the world, and you're in a new culture like Japan, and you're just finding people that you're meshing with, you're clicking with, and building those lifelong friendships, he said. We have seen that the more we cruise, the more we know people from around the world and get to know what their backgrounds are, and it's just kind of a beautiful thing, he said. Having a shared experience. Raquel Major Howland, owner of Major Adventures Travel Agency, similarly said that cruises naturally and effortlessly bring travelers together. No matter your background, career, or where you come from, once you are on that ship, you are just someone enjoying the journey, she said. And there's something really special about that shared energy. Thousands of people choosing to slow down, have fun, and experience the world together. And then we have starting the day at sea. My overarching favorite thing about cruising is sitting out on the deck at sunrise as we slowly cruise in the middle of the ocean, feeling the breeze on my skin while I'm doing my morning meditation, said Heather Schluter, who documents her retirement travels on YouTube with her husband Paul. The pair aim to spend 1/3 of the year on cruises. And lastly, we have falling asleep to the waves. No matter which cruise line, one of my favorite aspects of cruising is being gently rocked to sleep at night, Paul Schluter added. I love hearing the boat quietly creak with the movement of the ocean as I drift off to sleep. I sleep better on cruise ships than anywhere. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time is 43 minutes after the hour. And we continue with the USA Today Money, Travel, and Tourism section. A piece written by another USA Today travel columnist, Eve Chen. The piece is entitled, For Type B, No Plan is Part of the Trip. For these travelers, it's freeing without an itinerary. The idea of arriving at a destination without a place to stay would unnerve many travelers, but not Allison Mark, who considers herself very Type B. Mark spent 4 years backpacking full-time, mostly solo, before starting college in Australia this past year. With backpacking, it's sort of the culture to just do everything on very short notice, she said. I was pretty flexible from the beginning, but I did get even more so. It nearly got hairy the time she landed in Zimbabwe without lodging to list on her arrivals form and no internet access to find some. But she wound up getting a hostel recommendation from someone in the airport customs and immigration line. There is always going to be accommodations somewhere, unless like there's some huge event on in the city, she said. You always have a lot more options than you think you do. For some travelers, the idea of arriving in a foreign country without plans locked in sounds like a recipe for stress or anxiety. It's the opposite for frequent Type B travelers who find it freeing, allowing for more meaningful encounters and unexpected adventures. And here's how they do it. You might ask, what is Type B? Well, Type B personalities often are framed as the opposite of Type A. Where Type A people may be seen as goal-oriented, fast-paced, organized, and in control, according to the Cleveland Clinic, Type B individuals tend to be more relaxed, collaborative, and creative, with a natural ability to manage stress and prioritize well-being, according to mental health app company Calm. The latter may seem as if they don't have it together sometimes, which can frustrate their Type A counterparts. But going with the flow is the whole point for those who are Type B. Kevin Droniak, a travel content creator who's visited 54 countries, sees the benefits of both. It's like yin and yang. We need kind of both to, have a good trip, he said, noting Type A travelers can be counted on to research trips and make sure everyone gets to where they need to go to. But it's such a good balance to have us Type B travelers also, because we can lower the stress levels of a very strict plan and itinerary. When Mark was backpacking, she often would choose destinations based on the cheapest flights on sites such as Skyscanner. I would just pick somewhere I haven't gone before, she said. She stuck to visa-free countries or those that allow e-visas or a visa on arrival, but would eventually like to visit every country worldwide. She already has checked off 45. Rosalie Samoji, who also is Type B, has visited 44 countries. Her online-based work as a breathwork master has allowed her to travel full-time since 2020. One thing is, I go after feeling a lot like, how do I feel? The self-described perpetual traveler said of choosing destinations. I just want to go where I want to go. Pricing isn't as important to her, but climate is. I prefer hot countries, tropical countries. I don't like the cold at all, she said, speaking from Germany before heading to Thailand and the UAE. And if I go to a tropical country, I like to have the beach close by. It's very important to me. One of her favorite repeat destinations is Mexico. I love the culture. I love how passionate they are. I love the music. I love the parties. I love the beaches, the food, the climate, she said. And Mexico is so huge. I've been to half of the states in Mexico already. The State Department advises against visiting certain parts of Mexico and other destinations because of safety concerns, but Samoji isn't worried. Of course, every country, they all have certain places, certain neighborhoods where you shouldn't go alone, she said. Don't leave out a place just because you're scared of it. Droniak travels every week and likes to just let the wind take me wherever, he said. One of the first things he does in any destination is get coffee and ask a local barista for recommendations of things to do. Usually, I take those recommendations really seriously, he said. He doesn't pack his schedule tightly, still remembering the time he went hiking along Kauai's famed Napali coast with Type A friends, and they had to turn around after reaching a scenic viewpoint because of a dinner reservation. Who knows when you're going to be back at that viewpoint, he asked. He couldn't stay behind then, but he's happy to go his own way when possible, such as on a trip to Zhuhai, China, where he spent time wandering the canals while his friends ran around without him. There should not be any shame involved with saying to your Type A friends you're traveling with, hey, I'm going to actually spend the morning by myself and just have a chill morning, he said. Type A travelers who invest time and energy in carefully laid plans can get irritated when Type B counterparts want to change them. But, Droniak added, if they're real friends, they're going to understand that. Mark didn't have to worry about that solo traveling, but fellow travelers could still shape her journeys. Sometimes I end up traveling with other people that I meet while traveling, Mark said, such as the time she and some new friend drove down the coast of Morocco. I sort of like to keep it open so that I can just sort of see what happens. She acknowledges that travelers on short trips don't always have that flexibility. Certainly, some people find it very stressful to not have things planned, and if you find it very stressful, there's no reason to do things that way because you're not going to enjoy it, she said. But if you are open to it, I think there's really a lot less risk than people realize. Well, I have one question for this woman, Mark. She travels 4 years backpacking and then decides to go to college. Where, Miss Mark, did the money come from? Holy cow, 4 years traveling? Mom and Dad must be doing well. You are paying more for less when you travel. This is by Chris Elliott, USA Today's on-travel editor. Remember when you could check a bag, choose your seat, and stretch your legs on a flight without paying extra? It's not an urban legend. You used to be able to do all three at no extra charge. I am old enough to recall when a 34-inch seat pitch, the distance between seats was standard in economy class. Today, airlines call that same space premium economy and charge you another $200 for it. That 30-inch squeeze you're sitting in, it's the new standard. Call it premium creep, the quiet industry-wide racket where yesterday's basics become today's luxuries. Premium creep is the shrinkflation almost nobody talks about, and you are paying a steep price for it. The travel industry wraps premium creep in marketing language about choice and flexibility. But make no mistake, this travel shrinkflation means the exact opposite. You are getting less and paying more. This trend is not about consumer demand, but the demand by companies to maximize their margins through the unbundling of services. Said Dean Arachin, the CEO of BlackJet, a private jet company. And yes, his customers are so disenchanted with the state of modern air travel that they have turned to hiring private jets. If only we could all afford to do that. The reason for the higher pricing is not the added value, said John Morgan, a frequent air traveler who runs a venture capital firm. It's simply removal of the recently inflicted pain, the pain caused by the company itself. The travel industry creates the problem, then solves it. Brilliant. And here's the playbook. How did we get here? After airline deregulation, and especially following the 2008 financial crisis, airlines discovered they could advertise rock-bottom fares while making up the difference, and then some, through fees. It started with discount carriers charging for anything that wasn't nailed down in the cabin, but quickly spread to the legacy airlines. The result, airlines generated $148 billion in ancillary revenue worldwide in 2024, a 26% increase from the previous year. Fees for baggage, seat selection, early boarding, and all those other extras that used to come with your ticket all added up. How did they do it? They made the basic product so uncomfortable that you will pay to escape it. Airline seat pitch shrank from an average of roughly 34 inches in the 70s to 30 inches today. Premium is not the new economy, said Michael Strelovitz, director of the Elfenswork Center for Responsible Business. It's a downgrade disguised as an upgrade. Features that were once standard are now removed and sold back to consumers at a premium, creating the illusion of added value where none actually exists. It's a sleight of hand, according to experts. Companies determine what's premium by testing what they can remove from the base product without losing significant customers, explains Jacob Wetterman, CEO of Stasher, a luggage storage service. They're not offering anything new or better. They're taking away what used to be standard and charging you for it separately. So what can you do about it? Here's my advice. Don't believe the spin. Stop accepting the industry's framing that you're getting choice. You're not. You're getting less for more, repackaged as an upgrade. Work with a pro. A human travel agent knows which companies offer fair value. That information can make the difference between overpaying and traveling smart. And vote with your wallet. Support airlines and hotels that bundle services transparently, even if their sticker price looks higher. Push back against obvious cash grabs. File complaints when companies advertise one price and charge another. The old standards are reasonable and worth revisiting. If you're flying, you get 34 inches of legroom, a checked bag, an assigned seat, and on longer flights, an edible meal. If you're staying at a hotel, basic services are always included in the upfront price. And travel companies make money the old-fashioned way by charging people for tickets and rooms. That wasn't premium. That was basic travel. And until we demand it back, the creep will continue. 1 inch, one fee, one quote-unquote premium upcharge at a time. You are listening to reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, June 5th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walczyk. I appreciate you joining me. Hope you have a great weekend. And let's all remember tomorrow is the D-Day invasion 82 years ago. God bless all who gave the ultimate price. Take care. See you the next time.
last-second error in recording. We will not be able to play the second hour of today's USA Today. We'll be playing this past Wednesday's second hour of the USA Today in place of it. We apologize for any inconvenience. Been just a few minutes ago, and we just don't have time to repair it. Stay with us for that. Again, we apologize. At 2 o'clock, we'll be in the episode of our book. Stay with us.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is David Frothingham. Up now in the sports section, the lead headline reads, "Biggest Bite. Across the Big Apple, fans never get tired of their Knicks, especially in NBA Finals," by Christy Ackert. New Yorkers argue about everything: the best pizza, the best bagel, the best borough. Yankees fans won't sit next to Mets fans at the Subway Series. Giants fans can tolerate Jets fans only because they have the same home in New Jersey. Rangers and Islanders fans split households. But the Knicks? They would make a run in the playoffs, and suddenly this big city feels like they are all one big, loud New York family. That is what's happening now. The Knicks are in the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999, opening Game 1 on June 3rd against the San Antonio Spurs after sweeping the Cleveland Cavaliers and reeling off 11 straight playoff wins. The city hasn't had a moment like this in 27 years, and it shows. Quote, "The Knicks are the one team that makes New York feel like a small town," Mike Greenberg, host of ESPN's Get Up, told USA Today Sports. He's a Greenwich Village kid and a lifelong Knicks fan. Quote, "You always feel you're in the biggest city in the world, like you are in the center of the universe, and the Knicks are the one team that makes New York feel like a small town, because everyone is wearing their Knicks shirts and everyone is yelling 'Go Knicks' in the street. There is just a vibe." Greenberg has spent decades thinking about this. In 2014, when Super Bowl 47 was in the New York area, Greenberg said it was different than any of the other Super Bowls. Quote, "I'd come to Midtown every morning and do my show, and it felt very Super Bowl," Greenberg said of his Mike and Mike ESPN radio show. But the moment I went down to the Village to visit my parents, you would not have been aware the Super Bowl was in New York. I've covered 30 Super Bowls. In every city, the moment you get off the plane, you never escape it. In New York, you would have never known it was in town. But right now, Greenberg said, you cannot walk a block in any borough without knowing what's going on. The Knicks being in the finals is bigger in New York than the Super Bowl, Greenberg said. Susan Waldman, the voice of the Yankees who covered the Knicks at WFAN for a decade before moving to baseball, has a theory why the Knicks resonate in New York. Every other sport has more than one team, Waldman told USA Today Sports. For a long time, it was just the Knicks. It's the city sport. All you need is a basketball court and a ball. You rarely see an empty basketball court anywhere in the 5 boroughs, and for generations, the people running, coaching, and playing pro ball were from New York. Everyone in the stands when I covered the Knicks for a decade knew a coach, a scout, a guy they played with or against, someone on one of the teams playing. Waldman's point is made by scanning the Spurs roster. Julian Champagny grew up in Brooklyn and played at Bishop Laughlin in Fort Greene before starring at St. John's. Even Dylan Harper, the son of 5-time NBA champion Ron Harper, is something of a local, having grown up over the George Washington Bridge in New Jersey. Harvey Araton, the longtime New York Times columnist, wrote, "When the Garden was Eden," has been thinking about the same question for 40 years. He agrees with Waldman that the Knicks' place in the city's heart is from being the only NBA game in town for so long before the Knicks moved to Brooklyn. But he also thinks it is partly location. Quote, "Football is divided, baseball is divided, hockey is more of a niche sport," Araton said, "but basketball is the city game. The Yankees play the South Bronx, the Mets are out in Flushing, the Knicks play literally in the heart of New York. Penn Station runs right underneath the Garden. It connects everyone to this arena." After the Knicks swept the Cavaliers to clinch their spot in the NBA Finals, fans flooded 7th Avenue. Mayor Zoran Mamdani is planning sanctioned watch parties around the city for every finals game. For fans like Greenberg, what's at stake isn't just a championship, it's a generational story. He sat next to his father at hundreds of Knicks games growing up. He took his daughter to a game earlier in this playoff run. He'll take his son to a game in the finals this week. Quote, I've waited essentially my entire life to see one of my teams win a title, he said. I have no idea how I'll react because it's never happened to me before. I think a lot of Knicks fans probably feel that way. Ayrton thinks New York City will get a chance to find out. He has the Knicks in 6. The feeling over the next 2 weeks in New York is going to be pretty overwhelming, he said. People are just so hungry. The next headline reads, Young Spurs More Than Wemby by Lorenzo Reyes. Last season, with Victor Wembanyama shut down by mid-February with a blood clot, the San Antonio Spurs lurched to a 34-48 record. Now, just 4 wins away from an NBA title, these young Spurs are on the cusp of recasting the balance of power in the league and announcing itself as a dynastic force. Wembanyama is 22, Stephon Castle 21, and Dylan Harper 20. The average age of the Spurs, 25.06 years old, makes San Antonio the second youngest team to reach an NBA Finals in the shot clock era. Even their head coach, Mitch Johnson, is young. He's 39 and in his first full season on the job. And if he can top the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals, which begin June 3rd, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC, he would become the 5th youngest head coach to win an NBA championship since 1970. These Spurs, it would seem, are ahead of schedule. That has been the predominating thought surrounding San Antonio's ascension, but that framing is too simplistic. Yes, the Spurs are winning as a very young team, but that notion minimizes other qualities necessary in championship teams, qualities the Spurs have: commitment to an identity, maturity, a willingness to adapt, a willingness to sacrifice. Quote, people don't talk as much about the habits, the character, the togetherness, the competitive response, the things we talk about in these media sessions every single day, Johnson said after San Antonio dethroned the Thunder in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. And this team has now been pretty damn consistent for a long time, for over 100 games for the most part. When you look back at how we started the year, how we got to the NBA Cup on the road versus Denver and LA, what we did in the Cup playing the Thunder around Christmas time a few times, expectations. We've played in 3 playoff series at times, without Victor, without De'Aaron Fox, multiple games. I don't know who has as much experience as we do this year in terms of the 2025-26 season, end quote. Whether you subscribe to the notion that this team is ahead of some nebulous schedule, the Spurs are nonetheless favored to win the finals, primarily because of one thing. This team is much more than just Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs showed that in Game 7 when they topped the Thunder 111-103 on their home floor. 7 players reached double figures in scoring, and contributions from all over the rotation predominated. Julian Champagny, who finished with 20 points, dropped 11 in the third quarter. Backup center Luke Cornett, who played 6 minutes, hustled back during a pivotal Thunder fast break to pin a momentum-changing block against the backboard in an eventual 4-point swing. De'Aaron Fox, who was a menace on defense all night and collected 3 steals and later found his shooting stroke. Harper knocked down huge shots down the stretch and scored 12 points off the bench on 5 of 8 shooting. Backup Keldon Johnson, the NBA's 6th man of the year, knocked down 2 massive 3-pointers in the fourth quarter, both of which came when the Thunder had trimmed the deficit to 2 points. And then there's Mitch Johnson, the coach who came up in the organization, who was handpicked to be Greg Popovich's successor. San Antonio has built a culture of hard work and discipline, of growth and learning, of consistency. Wembanyama and Johnson are merely the next stewards of that culture, but this front office recognizes that it's about building a structure and empowering players to own their results. The Thunder are still a force in the West. The Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards and the Nuggets with 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic are always lurking. But first, it's the Knicks who stand in the way of history. And with NBA All-Defensive second-team selection OG Anunoby expected to be the primary defender on Wembanyama, and with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns leading an offense that has posted the most dominant stretch in league history over any 11-game stretch, the challenge is daunting. Other Spurs will need to step up. Winning the Larry O'Brien is a childhood dream, Wembanyama said after Game 7. Having a real shot at it, having a chance, a tangible chance at winning it, at realizing a dream, it's a lifelong chance. It's a lifetime chance. You never know when it's going to happen again. The day we win it, speaking for myself, it's going to be an amazing day of the realization of a dream. It's hard to put into words. It's almost like the meaning of my life. The next article on the front page of today's sports section reads, Browns are totally nuts for shipping off Garrett, by Jarrett Bell. There's a perfect explanation for trading away Myles Garrett, pretty much the closest thing to Reggie White in today's NFL. The Cleveland Browns are nuts. So what that the Browns got a series rising star in Jared Verse and 3 draft picks, including a first rounder in 2027 from the Los Angeles Rams in return. Is that all? The blockbuster last summer that sent Micah Parsons from the Cowboys to the Packers, people, was supposed to represent the market floor. Dallas got 2 first-round picks and D tackle Kenny Clark in sending Micah packing. Compared to that deal, the Browns hardly got enough for Myles, who routinely drew triple teams and still set the NFL season record in 2025 with 23 sacks and won his second Defensive Player of the Year award in 3 years. I mean, start bidding at 3 number ones, plus Verse. And remember, those draft picks have to become draft hits. And with the Rams undeniably in a championship mix, the most premium pick figures to be way at the bottom of the first round. Yet the bombshell on June 1 underscores exactly why one team, the Rams, has been hunting for Super Bowl crowns for the better part of a decade, and the other one hasn't sniffed a championship in several decades. The Browns, who last won an NFL crown with Jim Brown in 1964, are one of the 4 teams that have never played in a Super Bowl. In a weird way, that made Cleveland the perfect trade partner for LA. Yep, the Rams are all in to host another Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, and the already buffed bid just got a whole lot stronger with Garrett, 30, as the new centerpiece of the defense. Somewhere, Deacon Jones, R.I.B., the Rams legend of fearsome foursome fame who coined the term sack, is giving some poor sap a head slap. Rams swing for the fences, Browns do opposite. This is how the Rams do it with their aggressive general manager Les Snead and creatively hyped coach Sean McVay. They push the envelope, swing for the fences, shoot for the moon. The Browns, meanwhile, always seem to be on the verge of ABC, another bad creation. This is the dysfunctional franchise that kicked Baker Mayfield to the curb and traded for Deshaun Watson and gave him a fully guaranteed contract, despite the PR minefield that involved allegations of sexual misconduct by 24 massage therapists. It's the franchise that drafted Johnny Football Manziel, and before that, in the same first round, cornerback bust Justin Gilbert, and way back in 1999, picked Tim Couch over Donovan McNabb. One year, the Browns passed on drafting Julio Jones with the 6th pick overall and traded down for a package of picks that produced nothing special, while the receiver went on to produce a Hall of Fame resume. The franchise also served up since departed Chief Strategy Officer Paul DePodesta, whose Moneyball concepts from his athletic days didn't quite cut it in the NFL. And now they've traded away a generational talent who they had the good fortune of drafting number 1 overall in 2017. Stockpiling for the future provides options, but no guarantees. Brown's history of gloom continues. So if you're wondering why Jimmy and Dee Haslam are probably among the most heavily criticized owners in the NFL, there are the results. 0 division titles, a 5-12 finish in 2025, a revolving door of GMs, HCs, and QBs. Sure, they've tried it a lot of different ways. Todd Monken is the 11th head coach, excluding interims, since the franchise was reborn as an expansion team in 1999. The last season, Shedder Sanders became the 41st quarterback to start for the so-called Brownies during that span. On top of all the coaches, including one-and-done stints from Freddie Kitchens and Rod Chudzinski, and Hugh Jackson's 3-36-1 disaster, the Browns have had 10 GMs since the 1999 reboot, including one, Ray Farmer, who violated NFL rules by sending text messages to the sideline from the press box and is now, incidentally, a personal exec with the Rams. Of course, you can't put the Browns' long history of gloom on Monken, and only so much has come under GM Andrew Berry's watch. Still, it's the Browns. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour. It's no wonder that Garrett came out last year and went public with a trade demand, selling it as a championship mission. The Browns responded by signing Garrett to a 4-year, $160 million extension that made him the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Money talks, or lowers the volume. While Garrett had another monster season to go with a fat contract, that champion reportedly restructured the payouts of the option bonuses of Garrett's contract, following the $41 million in dead money to be spread over 2 years, was apparently the type of tweak that would facilitate a trade. And taking his $40 million per year off the books looks good on paper, too. Maybe that seems sensible for a chapter in some NFL Moneyball book, where the equations can be highlighted by color-coded graphs. It's just that some things about the NFL's best defensive end cannot easily translate on paper with analytics. Sure, barring divine intervention, the Browns won't be in the Super Bowl running this season. They've got more ammo to use in the future, and with so many waiting to dismiss Sanders for the role, maybe they'll pursue another franchise quarterback. Blah, blah, blah. We'll see. The Browns have drafted well recently, including second-round selection last year of linebacker Carson Schwesinger, who won NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year honors. Yet to win this deal, the Browns need a few more tens on the picks they've just received, while Verse fulfills his potential and becomes one of the NFL's best edge rushers. Yes, it's possible, but these are the Browns. History is not on their side. Garrett is gone, igniting his championship mission on a new team built for winning big. Too bad he can't take the Browns' misery with him. The next headline in today's USA Today sports section reads 5+5, Key Hurricanes, Knights and Stanley Cup by Mike Brem. The Carolina Hurricanes have broken through and reached the Stanley Cup final for the first time since coach Rod Brind'Amour was captain of the 2006 championship team. The Vegas Golden Knights responded to a late-season coaching change from Bruce Cassidy to John Tortorella to reach the final for the third time in the franchise's 9 years of existence. They won their second trip in 2023. The series winner will pick up the franchise's second Stanley Cup title. Who will help get them to the top? 10 players to watch in the Stanley Cup Finals, 5 of them from each team. Carolina Hurricanes. Goalie Frederik Andersen. He had a middling season, and Brandon Bussey played 4 more games and had 15 more wins than Andersen. Brind'Amour went with the veteran goaltender, and he has turned things around with a 12-1 record and 1.44 goals against average. Andersen was one of the first clients of Claude Lemieux after the 4-time Stanley Cup winner became an agent. He said after Lemieux's May 28th death that he wants to make Lemieux proud. Defenseman Jacob Slavin. He's considered a top shutdown defenseman, which is why he was named to Team USA at the 4 Nations Face-Off and Olympics. He was injured during the early part of the season, which explains why Golden Knights were able to score 10 goals against the Hurricanes in 2 October wins. He'll be key to helping limit a deep Vegas team. Forward Logan Stankoven. He was the key piece in the return when the Hurricanes traded Mikko Rantanen to Dallas last season after acquiring him early in the season. The 23-year-old has taken a big step, recording his first 20-goal season and leading the team with 9 playoff goals on the red-hot second line. Forward Taylor Hall. Hall came over in the first Rantanen trade from the Chicago Blackhawks as part of a 3-team deal. The 2010 number 1 overall pick was a Hart Trophy winner in 2017-18, but his play has dropped off before the trade. He has found his game on a line with Stankoven and Jackson Blake. Hall leads the Hurricanes with 16 points. Forward Sebastian Aho. He has only 4 goals and 7 points in 13 games after averaging a point per game in the regular season. The second line has been carrying the Hurricanes, and they'll need more offense from the Aho-led first line if they are going to beat the Golden Knights. Others to watch: Seth Jarvis, Andrei Svechnikov, K'Andre Miller, Jordan Staal. Vegas Golden Knights. Forward Mitch Marner. The Toronto Maple Leafs never got out of the second round and rarely out of the first during his tenure there. He received part of the criticism. Joining the Golden Knights in a sign and trade, he's not only in the fourth round, he's leading the playoffs in scoring with 21 points. Forward Jack Eichel. Coach John Tortorella calls him the best 200-foot player in the NHL. The center was used against Nathan MacKinnon in the conference finals sweep of the Colorado Avalanche. In addition, Eichel is second in playoff scoring with 18 points and helped the USA win the Olympic gold medal. Forward Pavel Dorofeev. He's tied for the NHL lead with 10 goals, with 4 of those coming on the power play. He will be a restricted free agent at season's end and due a big raise after scoring 35 and 37 goals in the last 2 regular seasons. Forward Mark Stone. The Golden Knights are so deep that the skilled Stone plays on the third line. The winger is a former Selke Trophy finalist and also has 4 power play goals. Injuries are a problem, and he was out for part of the playoffs. The Golden Knights were much better when he returned. Defenseman Shea Theodore. He's averaging more than 25 minutes a game, the most of any player in the series. The former Anaheim Duck leads Blue Liners with 11 points and has a series-high 46 block shots. He'll be responsible for helping the Golden Knights escape the Hurricanes' relentless forecheck. Others to watch: Carter Hart, Ivan Barbashev, Brett Howden, William Karlsson. The next headline on this page of today's sports section reads, MLB Players Union Rejects Salary Cap, by Bob Nightingale. Major League Baseball players would be taking a $500 million pay cut, with portions of their contracts becoming non-guaranteed if they accepted MLB's proposal for a salary cap. Bruce Meyer, interim executive director of the MLB's Players Association, said June 1st, quote, "That's something this union has fought against for decades, based on our belief that it's bad for players at all levels," Meyer said, explaining the union's strong opposition to the concept. And not just monetarily, bad for freedom, bad for competition, eliminates truly guaranteed money. Bad for the fans, in our view, bad for the players at every level, particularly bad for the middle class. Fundamentally, that system is anti-competitive. It's a form of institutionalized collusion, end quote. When asked how to convince MLB owners, who were set to begin a quarterly meeting June 2nd in New York, the union would never cave in to the owners' attempt for a potential lockout and would resist a salary cap like the NFL, NBA, and NHL, he reaffirmed the union's strength. Our union has never been broken, Meyer said. It never will be. So you can take away a different lesson from our history, but that would be a big mistake. Our players have what they have, including being the only sports that doesn't have this ultimate restriction, a salary cap, because our players have always been the most unified, and that's going to continue. Meyer, speaking publicly for the first time since the union and MLB exchanged proposals last week, said that he and the players were bitterly disappointed in the MLB's initial offer, which did not address items such as free agency, minimum salary, salary arbitration, or the draft. The proposal, he said, is worse than the one the MLB offered in 1994 before the sport endured the longest work stoppage in MLB history, 232 days, canceling the 1994 World Series. Very surprised, he said. I mean, I thought they would try harder to make it look good, and they didn't even do that. While MLB proposed a $245.3 million salary cap, along with a $171.2 million payroll floor for teams, Meyer said the numbers were misleading considering it didn't include benefits and amateur signings. While it included a promise of a 50-50 revenue sharing split, Meyer says that the players already are receiving more than 50% of the revenue now. So why would they accept a reduction that includes an escrow account which could reduce pay if revenue doesn't meet projections? He cited the NBA players as having to return nearly $500 million last year when the league didn't meet their revenue projections. Major League Baseball wasted no time disputing Meyer's claims, issuing a release within 45 minutes of Meyer's press briefing. Quote, "Our salary cap and floor proposal addresses our fans' concerns by leveling the playing field while sharing baseball revenue with the players 50-50 like the other leagues," MLB spokesperson Glenn Kaplan said. "Under our proposal, Major League players will receive more compensation in year one of the system than in 2026. We are ready to listen if the MLBPA wants to counter our proposal at the bargaining table." The massive disparity in MLB isn't because of the Dodgers and Mets payrolls, Meyer insists, but from teams that receive monies in revenue sharing but refuse to use it for their payroll. Quote, "Our proposals are designed to reward and incentivize competition," Meyer said. In other words, to get clubs, their owners who are choosing not to compete, and that will benefit players and fans. We believe that will be the single best change that could be made to benefit fans, incentivize and reward teams that are actually using revenue sharing money and other forms of subsidies for the purposes for which it was intended, namely, to put a better product on the field and not to put it in their pockets in the form of profits. Meyer cited Padres, who reside in one of MLB's smallest markets, who increased their payroll to the third highest in MLB 3 years ago and now have the second largest attendance in baseball with a perennial playoff team. Quote, "We want to encourage more San Diegos," Meyer said. "San Diego is a small market team that went out, decided to compete, signed a lot of players, turned around their franchise. They've grown attendance, they've grown interest, and we've all seen the explosion of their franchise value." The Padres were recently sold for $3.9 billion, the highest franchise sale in MLB history. While a small market team hasn't won the World Series since the Kansas City Royals in 2015, Meyer pointed out that the Milwaukee Brewers, who reside in MLB's smallest market, won the most regular season games in baseball last season before being swept by the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League Championship Series. The small market Cleveland Guardians and Tampa Bay Rays have also ranked among the top teams in regular season victories in the last decade. Quote, every team now has the ability to put a competitive team on the field," Meyer said. "Every single one has the ability to do what the Brewers are doing, what the Padres have done, or what Tampa has always done." The Players Union and MLB have yet to schedule their negotiating session, but both sides say they likely will meet soon to at least address non-economic issues, with flickering hopes of still reaching an agreement before their CBA expires December 1st and a pending lockout. Quote, "Hopefully everyone is thinking rationally, and at the end of the day, we will make a deal," Meyer said. "I don't know when, what it's going to take, but we have to deal with each other." Quote, "I wouldn't be optimistic expecting an early deal, but on the other hand, you never know. You never know." The next headline on this page reads, "Linsanity Coming to ESPN's Finals Studio" by Danielle Lerner. Jeremy Lin couldn't have timed it better. This week, the player responsible for perhaps the NBA's most potent cultural phenomenon is stepping into a new broadcast role while the iconic franchise linked to his fame is competing for an NBA championship. Lin, whose memorable play for the New York Knicks during the 2011-2012 season sparked the international Linsanity craze, is joining ESPN's NBA Finals coverage as an analyst. He will appear on NBA Today, SportsCenter, and possibly other network programs through the duration of the Knicks-Spurs series. He makes his debut June 3rd on SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt live in Washington, D.C. And yes, Lynn told USA Today Sports in an interview on June 1st he is excited to see his former team 4 wins away from an NBA title. I've always felt like Knicks fans deserve the best performances. They're so passionate, Lynn said. And as cool as it was for me to give good performances only for that stretch of time, I genuinely wish that I was able to do more. I genuinely wish that I was able to stay longer, genuinely wish that I could have a lot more success and done things in the playoffs for the Knicks, but that never came to fruition, end quote. Lynn played in the NBA for 9 seasons, including 2-year stints in Houston and Brooklyn as part of Toronto Raptors Championship 2019 season. But he remains best known for his lone season with the Knicks. Current Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns, who grew up in New Jersey, even credited Lynn for influencing his Knicks fandom. Lynn helped the Knicks turn around their season in February 2012 when he joined the starting lineup and led the team on a 7-game winning streak while star Carmelo Anthony was out injured. The Knicks made the Eastern Conference playoffs, but, with Lynn injured and unable to play, were eliminated in the first round. Quote, I don't think people understand the agony, putting in that much, having the team be able to turn around and really find a good rhythm, and then not to be there for the most important games, Lynn said. It was really hard for me not to be out on the floor. I know that there were some reports at that time, but the reality was I was doing everything I could to try to get back and contribute, and I wasn't able to do that. End quote. Lynn went on to play in the NBA playoffs in 4 seasons for 3 teams, and he said he plans to lean on that experience in his analyst role with ESPN. Quote, the goal for me is really how do I bring my previous experience and distill the complexities into something simple and digestible for the fans, Lynn said. And that's not just the successes. It's the failures of multiple first-round exits before I was able to be a part of a team that was able to win it all. And seeing what worked, what didn't work, or what was the differentiator in getting us over the top, those are the things that I want to talk about, end quote. The whole idea of TV came out of left field for Lynn, who said that while playing, he never contemplated a broadcast career. But last season, after Lynn returned from playing basketball in China and decided to retire, he wanted to figure out his next steps. This March, Lynn made a guest analyst appearance on NBA Today, which he said was effectively a 3-day trial period. He wanted to find out whether he was passionate about broadcasting and whether a network would give him the chance. His analytical breakdown of Luka Doncic's isolation play was well received by viewers and answered his own questions. Quote, I'm less of the super hot take loud persona, Lynn said. I try to be somewhat even-keeled. I even try to be educated, and I try to be uplifting, even if I have to criticize. Lynn said he's learned that broadcasting is harder than it looks, and he wants to do it anyways. Although his current agreement with ESPN is only through these finals, he hopes to continue his broadcasting career afterwards. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 32 minutes after the hour. On the next page of today's sports section, the headline reads, under the WNBA Power Rankings banner, the headline reads, Off-Season Ads Make a Contribution, by Megan L. Hall. Championships aren't won during the off-season, but adding the right pieces can help. The Atlanta Dream sent shockwaves through WNBA circles by trading for Angel Reese, and her acquisition wasn't the only splash of an action-packed off-season. The Las Vegas Aces needed Shanadi Carter, and multiple teams doled out million-dollar contracts to newcomers. Who are the best off-season acquisitions for each team? USA Today breaks it all down in this week's WNBA Power Rankings. The Minnesota Lynx take over the top spot as multiple teams move up and down the rankings. The Connecticut Sun continue to sit at number 15 in the USA Today Sports Power Ranking. Note, all records and stats are through games played on June 1st. Number 1, Minnesota Lynx, 7-2. Previous rank, 5, up 4. Top acquisition, F. Natasha Howard. Without Nafisa Collier, who continues to rehab from ankle surgery, Howard has stepped in and become the team's leading scorer, 17.3 points per game. Minnesota is riding a 4-game winning streak, and during that same period, Howard has put up two 20-point performances, including 26 points on 73.3% shooting, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists May 23rd against the Chicago Sky. Number 2, Atlanta Dream, 5-2. Previous rank 2. No movement. Top acquisition, forward Angel Reese. Reese's integration into the Dream's system has been pretty seamless. The Dream forward is second in the WNBA in rebounds per game, 11.0, and has 4 double-doubles this season. She also recently reached 900 rebounds in 71 games, the fastest in WNBA history. Dallas Wings, 6-3. Previous rank 6, up 3. Top acquisition, forward Jessica Shepard. Shepard is currently averaging career high in points, 13.0, rebounds 11.4, and assists 6.5 per game. She leads the league in rebounds per game and has already notched 2 triple-doubles this season, including a sensational 22 points on 61.5% from the floor, 20 rebounds, and 10 assists against Las Vegas to close out in May. Number 4, Las Vegas Aces, 5-3. Previous rank 1, down 3. Top acquisition, guard Chennedy Carter. Perhaps no one has a bigger jump start on the early 6th Player of the Year race than Carter, who has 4 20-point games off the bench for the Aces. She is averaging 17.5 points per game, firmly second in scoring for the Aces behind Asia Wilson. Number 5, Golden State Valkyries, 5-3. Previous rank 4, down 1. Top acquisition, forward Gabby Williams. Williams is a connector on both ends of the floor, and she's more than proved it in her first season with the Valkyries. Guard Veronica Burton and Williams are evolving into a nice 1-2 punch. In her last 3 games, Williams is averaging 18 points per matchup, 4 rebounds, 2.6 assists, and 2.5 steals. Portland Fire, 6-4. Previous rank 10, up 4. Top acquisition, guard Carla Lady. Lady has shown zero fear and delivered in big moments, whether it's the dagger shot over the New York Liberty or driving directly to the cup against Caitlin Clark. Lady is ready for the challenge. After spending a season in Golden State, Lady has found her footing with Portland while averaging career best numbers in points, 15.9, assists, 5.0, and field goal percentage, 48.1. Number 7, New York Liberty, 5-4. Previous rank 7, no change. Top acquisition, guard Marine Johannes. Johannes rejoined the team this offseason and hasn't missed a beat. She's filled in fairly well for Sabrina Ionescu, who has been in and out of the lineup with injuries. Known for her electric 3-point baskets, Johannes leads the league in total shots behind the arc line with 29. Number 8, Toronto Tempo, 5-4. Previous rank 11, up 3. Top acquisition, guard Brittany Sykes. Sykes is having an early breakout for the Tempo as she settles in with her new franchise. She is averaging a career-high 19.9 points per game and has only had 1 game where she has scored less than 10. The best matchup of her Toronto tenure came against the Sparks on May 17th, when she scored 38 points and tallied 3 steals and 1 block. Indiana Fever, 4-4. Previous rank 3, down 6. Top acquisition, forward Monique Billings. Billings hasn't quite reached the double-digit scoring the Fever likely need her to average. However, she's shown flashes of what she can do, including being disruptive on both ends. Her best stat lines have been 2 near double-doubles, including 10 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, and 2 blocks against the Mystics on May 15th. Los Angeles Sparks, 4-4. Previous rank 8, down 2. Top acquisition, forward Nneka Ogwumike. Ogwumike, returning to Los Angeles, has paid dividends for the Sparks. She's been a welcome extra scoring presence in LA's lineup and is shooting an efficient 53.2% from the field, while averaging close to 16 points and 7 rebounds per game. Number 11, Washington Mystics, 3 and 4. Previous rank 14, up 3. Top acquisition, forward Michaela Onyenwere. Onyenwere has played 3 games for Washington due to injury, so the verdict is still out on her overall impact. However, at 26, she's one of the foremost veterans on the team, and such a young squad will need that experience down the stretch. In her 3 games, Onyenwere is averaging roughly 8 points, including 14 points on 50% shooting against Seattle on May 27th. Number 12, Chicago Sky, 3 and 5. Previous rank 9, down 3. Top acquisition, forward Rickey Jackson. Jackson isn't playing anymore this season after suffering an ACL tear. However, her impact on the Sky is undeniable. Since Jackson exited the lineup, Chicago has yet to win a game. She was averaging a team-high 18 points per game while putting up 1.8 blocks per contest, tied for the team lead with center Camila Cardoso. Number 13, Seattle Storm, 3 and 7. Previous rank 11, down 2. Top acquisition, Natisha Heidemann. Heidemann is having one of the best starts to her career as she leads a young Seattle team. The former Lynx guard, who is now transitioned into a starter for the Storm, is averaging a career-best 13.6 points and 4.1 assists per matchup. Number 14, Phoenix Mercury, 2 and 8. Previous rank 13, down 1. Top acquisition, guard Jovana Nogic. The Mercury are the lone exception to this week's power rankings, as every other key addition has been a veteran. It's nearly impossible not to notice the historic tear Nogic has been on. She introduced herself to the league with a 19-point debut and kept going with 27 points against Chicago on May 15th. With 25 made three-pointers this season and 13.3 points per matchup, she leads all rookies in made shots behind the line and is second in rookie scoring. Number 15, Connecticut Sun, 2 and 8. Previous rank 15, no change. Top acquisition, center Brittany Griner. Griner has been the Suns' best offseason acquisition. The Sun center leads a youthful Connecticut team in scoring 13.5 points per game and is tied for second in minutes, 24.3. At 35 years old, she is still writing her name in the record books and recently became the 18th player in the WNBA history to score 6,000 career points. Next headline in today's sports section is Texas Tech, Texas, to meet in Women's College World Series Final by Mitchell Northam and Sydney Henderson. 2 teams remain in college softball for the 2026 season. In a rematch of last year's final, Texas Tech and reigning champion Texas will play in a best-of-3 series to determine the sport's champion in Oklahoma City. The first game of Women's College World Series Finals begins on June 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, ESPN. The Longhorns are back in the championship series after beating Tennessee twice June 1st, outscoring the Lady Volunteers by a combined score of 9-2. Texas Tech had to win twice Monday, too, getting a walk-off home run from Mia Williams in Game 1 over Alabama, then scoring just enough to support Nijari Kennedy's stellar pitching in Game 2. 8 teams entered the Women's College World Series when the greatest show on dirt arrived in Oklahoma City on May 28th. Now, only the Longhorns and the Red Raiders remain, the winners and losers of the action we've seen so far at Devon Park. WCWS winners. Texas first baseman Katie Stewart. Katie Stewart has established herself as one of the best bats in the Longhorns lineup. She played a crucial role in securing the pair of wins over Tennessee on Monday that sent Texas to its 3rd consecutive WCWS finals, homering in both games. Stewart, a junior from Frankfort, Illinois, is hitting .429 on the season with 30 home runs, 77 RBIs, and .989 slugging percentage. Stewart's home run total is a single-season record for the Longhorns and is a big reason why they're eyeing what would be their 2nd national championship. Texas Tech pitcher Nijari Kennedy. After a few rocky appearances, the Texas Tech ace shined in the biggest moments as her team faced elimination. She got the game-winning strikeout on Sunday against UCLA, struck out 4 batters in the Red Raiders' first matchup against Alabama on Monday, and then pitched a nearly flawless Game 2, striking out 6 batters while allowing 1 hit and 1 walk in a complete game shutout. Pitching in the WCWS for the 4th and final time in her career, the highest paid player in college softball has saved her best stuff for the biggest stage. WCWS losers, the Big Ten. When NCAA's softball tournament began, the Big Ten seemed to have 2 legitimate contenders for the national championship in Nebraska and UCLA. The Cornhuskers had the best two-way player in the sport in Jordy Fromm, who powered them to a Big Ten championship. The Bruins featured the most explosive offense in the nation, with Megan Grant and Jordan Woolery anchoring the lineup. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Both teams had the opportunity to upset the status quo of the sport being dominated by teams from the South. Between 2006 and 2011, teams from the old Pac-12 won 6 consecutive national championships. But since then, UCLA's 2019 squad is the only team from outside the South that has won it all. That trend will continue this year as the Cornhuskers and Bruins were eliminated on Sunday. The Big Ten has not won a national title in softball since Michigan in 2005. Tennessee. The Lady Vols were knocking on the door of their 3rd WCWS championship appearance in program history. After opening the Women's College World Series with a win over the defending champion Longhorns, and then walking off Texas Tech in extra innings, Tennessee was flying high into Monday's national semifinal matchup against Texas. Tennessee needed 1 win to advance to the championship series, while Texas would have to defeat them twice. With the number 1 pitching staff in the nation on its side, Tennessee head coach Karen Weekly opted to flex the Lady Vols' depth in the circle and stash ace Carlin Pickens for an if necessary Game 2. Texas went on to force a winner-take-all game, and Pickens couldn't hold the Longhorns off. UCLA utility Megan Grant. It's hard to believe Grant and loser in the same sentence. It's hard to have Grant and loser in the same sentence. After spending a portion of the season with the national championship UCLA basketball team, Grant went on to set a single-season NCAA record with 42 home runs. The records didn't stop there. UCLA obliterated nearly every offensive category and set NCAA single-season records for home runs, 209, runs scored, 672, RBIs, 643, total bases, 1,408, and extra base hits, 334 in 63 games. However, UCLA's record-breaking season fell short. The Bruins rallied in the bottom of the 7th to force extra innings against Texas Tech at the WCWS on Sunday behind a Jordan Woolery two-run home run, but Bruins magic ran out in the elimination game. UCLA lost 8-7, but the Bruins season will be remembered. Moving on to the life section of today's USA Today, the lead headline reads, "Celebrate Beach Season with a Bucket of Good Shows," by Kelly Lawler. Summer 2026 will be full of vampires, dragons, frontiersmen, superheroes, and President Barack Obama. And that's just on your TV screens. Yes, as temperatures heat up around the country, so are all the TV shows available for you to watch, and it'll be a summer full of heavy-hitting returning shows, such as House of Dragon, The Bear, and Ted Lasso, as well as exciting new series eager to become the next cultural darling, from a Legally Blonde prequel to a familiar Prairie Set reboot. We've rounded up the 10 shows you won't want to miss this summer, whether you're inside trying to beat the heat or looking for something breezy to watch on your beach weekend. There's something up for everyone on our list. The Vampire Lestat on AMC, June 7th, new episodes Sundays, 9 p.m. A rebrand of Interview with a Vampire to indicate the change in main character, Lestat continues the story started in the steamy AMC series starring Jacob Anderson and Sam Reed as the vampires Lewis and Lestat, respectively. The first 2 seasons were told from Lewis's point of view, but now the camera flips to the punk rock Lestat and Reed's hot and heavy depiction of the blonde creature of the night made famous in Anne Rice's novels and the 1994 film adaptation played by Tom Cruise. The series, which has a rabid fan base, promises more of the melodrama, blood, sex, and outbursts from the interview seasons in the Lestat version. House of the Dragon, Season 3, HBO. June 21st, new episodes Sundays, 9 p.m. Get ready for civil war in Westeros. After 2 seasons of build-up, with a battle here and a battle there, HBO's Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon, is letting its dragons loose in Season 3. The warring factions of the silver-held Targaryen clan, led by Rhaenyra, Emma Darcy on Team Black, and Aemond, Ewan Mitchell on Team Green, finally are fully stocked with armies and fire-breathing weapons of mass destruction, and ready to fight for the Iron Throne. The 3rd season will set up the long game for the series as it gets bloody, muddy, and deeply political. The Bear, Season 5. All episodes June 25th. Get ready to say yes, chef, one last time. FX and Hulu's culinary phenomenon is returning for a 5th and final season. We as viewers have been along for the ride with Carmi, Jeremy Allen White, Sydney, A.O. Edebiri, Richie, Ebon Moss Bacharach, and the rest of the kitchen staff of the Bear and the Beef restaurants for 5 years, and it will be oh so hard to say goodbye. The series left off with Carmi trying to turn over his ownership of the restaurant and retire, as he reckons with what his profession and the frenetic pace of restaurant life has done to his mental health. The restaurant's financial backing is also in question, as all the characters come together to try to fix the unfixable and solve problems that never end. Fans can only hope there might be some way to eke out a happy ending in the notoriously stressful show. Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness, HBO. June 26, new episodes Fridays, 9 p.m. Dubbed as an almost history of America, Larry David goes for broke in his first post-Curb Your Enthusiasm project in terms of celebrity collaborators. Does it get bigger than a president? Former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama combined forces with David for a project sort of celebrating the United States' 250th anniversary this July 4th with this 7-episode comedy series. Details have been kept mum, other than the show will include select Curb Your Enthusiasm actors and noteworthy guest stars. We're picturing something like Drunk History crossed with Seinfeld. Could be great, could be a train wreck. It will certainly be worth watching. Elle, Prime Video, all episodes July 1st. They're making a Legally Blonde prequel? What, like it's hard? Elle Woods, the golden blonde Valley Girl protagonist of the 2001 blockbuster movie, is back, this time as a teen. Produced by the character's originator, Reese Witherspoon, the 1990s period piece follows a young Elle, portrayed by newcomer Lexi Minettree, in high school. Bruiser the dog will, of course, be there too. Silo, Season 3, Apple TV. July 3rd, new episodes streaming Fridays. Apple TV's fantastic sci-fi dystopian thriller returns for a 3rd season, and it already has been renewed for a 4th and final installment. Based on the book series by Hugh Howey, the show takes place in a silo-shaped bunker underground holding 10,000 people, centuries after some kind of world-ending event. The first 2 seasons followed the rumblings of rebellion within the silo as citizens questioned their secretive government and what happened that drove humanity to the buried refuge. Rebecca Ferguson returns as Juliet after a cliffhanger at the end of Season 2. New faces include Jessica Brown Finley, Downton Abbey, Colin Hanks, Jessica Henwick, Vladimir, and Ashley Zuckerman, Succession. Little House on the Prairie, Netflix, all episodes July 9th. Ready for a sun-dappled dose of nostalgia? Netflix is bringing us a shiny new version of the classic 1974 to 1983 NBC series, also based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's iconic semi-autobiographical books. The New Prairie is comfort watching served in a bonnet and stockings. The cast is a group of mostly unknown actors who may just make their mark with these high-profile roles. 5-star weekend, Peacock. All episodes July 9th. If we were giving out superlatives for summer TV shows, we'd call Peacock's new Ellen Hillenbrand adaptation most likely to be watched at the beach house. A gauzy, dreamy melodrama about a widow trying to take back control of her life by bringing 4 friends from different ages and stages together for one weekend in Nantucket. Of course, lessons will be learned along the way. The cast for the series is stacked, including Jennifer Garner, Darcy Carden, Gemma Chan, Regina Hall, Chloe Sevigny, Harlow Jane, and Timothy Oliphant. Ted Lasso, Season 4, Apple TV. August 5th, new episodes streaming Wednesdays. He's back, with biscuits but not tea in tow. Apple TV's massively popular Ted Lasso, about an American football coach drafted to lead a British soccer team, seemingly was all done with the conclusive Season 3 finale episode in 2023. But the Jason Sudeikis starring sappy comedy is coming back, thanks to the pure willpower of a streaming service in desperate need of an all-around hit. The new season will focus on Ted coaching a women's team for Richmond. Returning cast, other than Sudeikis, will include Juno Temple, Hannah Waddingham, Brett Goldstein, Brendan Hunt, and Jeremy Swift. New players in the field in Season 4 include Tanya Reynolds, Jude Mack, Faye Marcy, Rex Hayes, Aisling Sharkey, Abby Hearn, and Grant Freely. Several supporting characters from the first 3 seasons of Lasso, such as Nick Mohammed's Nate and Phil Dunster's Jamie Tart, have not been announced as part of the Season 4 cast. Lanterns, HBO Max. August 16th, new episodes streaming Sundays. It wouldn't be summer without a visit from some superheroes. HBO Max has a new series based on the DC Comics Green Lantern characters, but it doesn't look a thing like the much-maligned Ryan Reynolds' Blake Lively film adaptation from 2011. In fact, you might think you're not looking at a superhero show at all, but rather a neo-noir mystery or modern western by the dusty looks of the series. But we're still talking about aliens, good guys, bad guys in Lanterns, which stars Kyle Chandler and veteran Green Lantern hero Hal Jordan and Aaron Pierre as whippersnapper John Stewart. The new 2 work together to solve a mystery in America's heartland that is part of a wider DC universe of films. Nathan Fillion's Lantern hero Guy Gardner will also reprise his role from the 2025 box office hit Superman. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for June 3rd, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been David Frothingham.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 10 of 1929 by Andrew Ross Sorkin. Following that, at 3 o'clock is New York Magazine, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of the Buffalo News. Stay with us.
Ag Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a serialized reading